Let's talk about CFRs. First CFR we're going to look at is 41 CFR 102-74.420. As you'll see, nothing's really been done on it. I'm sure someone somewhere has been popped for doing this, but hasn't shown up anywhere. So, or at least that I could find. I'm sure one of my intrepid legal researchers will go out there and find somewhere that somebody has been charged under 41 CFR 102-74.420, and I excitedly await seeing it in the comments. So since I don't have anything really to go on for this, let's move along to 39 CFR 232.1. There is lots and lots of action on 232.1, conduct on postal properties. Lots and lots. But because this is the channel that it is, I am going to focus on the First Amendment aspect of it. Our first stop will be Del Gallo, or Del Gallo. I don't know. It's probably De Gallo or Del Gallo. In Del Gallo, they were trying to distribute political campaign solicitations on a post office sidewalk. They wanted the defendants, which would be the post office, I believe, wanted summary judgment on the grounds the sidewalk in question was a non-public forum as a matter of law, and the postal regulations were reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And they're like, you know what? It's not, you don't have to do reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions because it's not a public forum. And so they don't have to. It's a non-public forum, and it's consistent with U.S. v. Kikinda. The postal sidewalk did not serve as a thoroughfare. And then they looked at Grace, I believe, somewhere in here, or maybe it was in the appellate decision that they looked at Grace. U.S. v. Grace is where the United States Supreme Court overturned a federal statute that was overbroad because it dealt not only with the grounds and buildings of the Supreme Court, but it also dealt with the sidewalks that bordered the street around the Supreme Court. And they said that because those sidewalks are a traditional public forum, the whole statute is scrapped. But they held there in that decision that the Supreme Court and the grounds of the Supreme Court steps, are a non-tradition or a non-public forum. And we'll get to Kikinda later on in here. This is the appellate court for the First Circuit. And they said, yeah, absolutely. The sidewalks that don't border the street for a post office, those are traditional public forums. Let's see if they talk about Grace in here somewhere. I could have swore they talk about Grace. So it's a non-public forum. It's not a traditional public forum. It was clearly separate from the nearby municipal sidewalks. It had not consistently historically been used for public assembly and debate, and it was there to provide customers access and entry to the post office. It was viewpoint neutral and reasonable. And again, that's all a non-traditional public forum needs. It has to be viewpoint neutral or content neutral or both. Both, actually. It has to be both content neutral and viewpoint neutral. And it has to be reasonable. And that's it. Next, we're moving on. This is the District of Columbia Initiative and Referendum, the United States Postal Service. And once again, this is the district court version. Once again, the public sidewalks and I think gray sidewalks. Yep, there's gray sidewalks. And again, it is a non-public forum. And again, it has to be, the plans did not show the regulation was overbroad, etc. It's a non-public forum, and it just has to be There was a point in time where the post office had said all the sidewalks around it, but they had amended it to say that the gray sidewalks didn't count. And then it was affirmed in the Court of Appeals. Indeedy do. You can't do it. First Amendment activities can be barred. They're not traditional public forums. The interior postal sidewalks were neither traditional nor designated public forums. The regulations applicable to them was reviewed for its reasonableness, content neutral and reasonable. That's all you need in a non-public forum. This is US v. Björk. 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 I'm going to say Björk. This one was District of Columbia Circuit. This is Third Circuit, Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Once again, it is a non-public forum. I shouldn't have scrolled up. I did like their forum analysis in it. But I also wanted to point out that they said non-traditional public forum, and I thought that was funny. Instead of saying non-public forum, they said non-traditional public forum. Oh wait, this is in the dissent. I should have marked it. Smart people would have marked it. If you were a real lawyer, you would have marked it. Excuse me. Excuse me again. I'm sorry. I'm a honky. Get it. In a long line of cases, the Supreme Court has made clear that the government, no less than the private owner of property, has the power to preserve the property under its control for the use to which it is lawfully dedicated. Adderley v. Florida, one of my favorites. Upholding a trespass conviction, etc. Thus, whether the government must permit access to public property for expressive activities depends on the nature of that property. The Supreme Court recently set forth the appropriate analysis for resolving claims of access to public property in Cornelius v. NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. If the public property to which individuals seek access is a traditional public forum, such as a street or a park, I would throw in there a sidewalk or a plaza, the court explained any exclusion must be based on a compelling state interest, narrowly tailored to promote that interest. A time, place, or manner restriction is also permitted if it is content neutral and if it is designed to advance a significant governmental interest. The same rules apply to a non-traditional forum that is designated by the government as a public forum, but officials may choose to disclose such a designated public forum at any time. However, restrictions on access to government property that generally has not been open for public expression, characterized by the Supreme Court as a non-public forum, need be only reasonable and content neutral. Defendants were charged with conducting activities on or near walkways located on postal premises. We must therefore consider the Supreme Court's decision in U.S. v. Grace. In Grace, the court held that a public sidewalk surrounding the Supreme Court building is a public forum, even though included in a statutory description of court property on which certain expressive activity was forbidden. But Grace does not stand for the proposition that any outdoor path is a traditional public forum. In Grace, the court focused on a sidewalk bordering streets that appeared identical to the public sidewalks found in every urban area. As the court observed regarding the area at issue, there is no separation, no fence, no indication whatever to persons stepping from the street to the curb and sidewalks that serve as the perimeter of the court grounds that they have entered some special type of enclave. In contrast, the Grace Court distinguished Greer v. Spock, which held that streets and sidewalks of a military reservation open to the public only on a limited basis constituted a non-public forum. In Greer, even though civilians were freely permitted to visit unrestricted areas, signs were posted at the reservation entrances barring solicitors and warning of possible vehicle searches, thus making it clear to persons entering that they were departing from traditional public thoroughfares. The dissent suggests, etc. Anyway, we've that's a pretty good analysis. So you can see why every time, airtime, airtime, airtime. We got to start with that forum analysis. Then we have PAF v. Kaltenbach. This is another Third Circuit. And again, political activists were arrested for distributing political literature on postal property. And once again, this time they sued in a 1983 lawsuit, and they found that the police officer had immunity. Defendant was protected by qualified immunity. He reasonably relied on the postmaster's judgment that their leafletting activity impeded public access, making his belief that the arrest was constitutionally valid reasonable. And, Jacobson v. U.S. Post Office. This is Ninth Circuit. This is close to home. Once again, we have a vendor. This guy wanted to put his newspaper stands. And the court found that the U.S. could control when, where, and how. And he had to pay to a fund for blind people. Fund for the blind. And so... it is a non-public fora. You can see the overwhelming weight of evidence. Then there's the National Anti-Drug Coalition. This is Seventh Circuit. Once again, the court held it is a non-public forum, and you can tell it because it was a reasonable regulation and it was content neutral. Why aren't you clicking on content neutral? There you go. Content neutral. And let's see if we could find where it says non-public forum in there. Boom, 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 boom. Let's look. Non-public. Oh, it doesn't say it in there. So then how do we know? Oh, well, we know because it has to be content neutral and it has to be reasonable. You could tell the forum by the test and the test by the forum. I may have said that wrong. Legal researcher, get on it. And then finally, this is Kokinda. This is the U.S. Supreme Court case. They were setting up on a sidewalk that led from the parking lot to the front door. And the post office made them leave. They were convicted of violating 232.1H1. And the court said it is a non-public forum. And again, they used reasonable. It was reasonable. Well, they said it's not unreasonable to prohibit solicitation speech. So it just has to be reasonable, content neutral and reasonable. Let's see if they say non-public in here somewhere. Non-public forum. Non-public forum. Non-public forum. Look at all those non-public forums. So yeah. So there you go. If anybody tells you that Poster 7 allows for you to film because you're news, it is a non-public forum. The non-public forum analysis will hold. It just has to be content neutral or viewpoint neutral. Actually, it has to be both. And it has to be reasonable, and they can limit it. So I haven't seen anybody actually get popped. I couldn't find any. I'm sure that somebody in the comments somewhere will find a specific case where somebody was actually popped for H5, 232.1 H5. H5, except as... Oh. I. Okay. My bad. I thought it was... Didn't it used to be H5? I guess it's I. My bad. So I'm sure somebody somewhere will find a case that deals with 232.1I. If you do, please let me know. I would love to see it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.